My great-grandfather, Charlie Sween, homesteaded here in 1887, a year before South Dakota became a state. So the farm has been in our family for 130 years.
Near the town of Volga sits a picturesque farmstead where the Nelson family roots run deep. Jerry Nelson and his wife live here. These days they raise a few Jersey cattle and maintain the family homestead.
Well, my dad had a diversified farm when I was growing up. You know, we had pigs, chickens, cows, and a dairy. And when I was a little kid, all I wanted to do was be a farmer like my dad. And so I've been a dairy farmer most of my life.
Farm life took an unexpected turn on a fateful day in 1988. Jerry's life was nearly cut short when a terrible farm accident left him clinging for life. While doing farm work, Jerry went to unclog a manure pump.
As soon as I got down there, I began to feel really weird, and I thought, it's the gas. I've heard about some sort of gas that's in those manure pits. And so I began to climb out, and I nearly made it to the top when everything suddenly faded to black, like at the end of an old movie. I had encountered hydrogen sulfide gas, which is one of the most toxic substances known to man. Well, my parents found me sometime later floating face up in the manure, and of course they had to make that phone call that no parent would want to make. You had to call 911. My wife Julie and I had made a plan to meet at Brookings for the Folk Arts Festival, and I didn't show up, and she thought that I had chosen to work that day instead of spending time with her and our two boys. And she was pulling out of a parking lot when a car almost hit her, and the guy that almost hit her rolled down his window, and it was one of the first responders, and his first words to Julie were, "Get to the hospital, Jerry's still breathing." And that's how she was introduced to this whole thing. So she rushed to the hospital, and the doctors had worked on me, and they said, well, Jerry has suffered a very severe accident, a very severe injury to his lungs. He's likely not going to live. Julie said, "Is he still alive?" And they said, "Well, yeah, but not for much longer." She said, "Well, call the chopper, get him to Sioux Falls." And they said, "You don't understand, there's no hope." She said, "I don't care, call the chopper."
In the coming weeks, Jerry clung to life, on a respirator and given a very slim chance of survival. He was moved from the Sioux Falls Hospital to the Mayo Clinic. Julie stood by his side every step of the way. He slowly regained consciousness, his lungs slowly began to heal, his memory returned, and after 5 weeks in the hospital, mostly in intensive care, Jerry was able to walk out unassisted. With a new appreciation for the world around him, Jerry's life on the dairy farm went back to normal. Then, after a few years, an unusually wet spring and summer put a halt to field work, and Jerry discovered a new talent which would ultimately change his life.
So I wrote a spoof letter to Mel Closter, our county extension agent, asking if he didn't know of some cheap and effective herbicides that could control the cattails in my corn. And while he was at it, maybe he could help me get rid of the ducks and the power boats out there. They were probably being hard on the corn too. And then instead of addressing the letter Dear Mel, I addressed it Dear County Agent Guy, because that's how we speak out here. Mel read the letter, and he said that he really enjoyed it and encouraged me to get it published somewhere. And my reaction was, "You've got to be kidding. I have zero experience as a journalist. I barely graduated from high school." But I took his advice. I took the letter to Chris Schumacher, who is the publisher of the Volga Tribune. And Chris said, "Yeah, I'll publish this. Do you have any more ideas?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe one or two." And he said, "Well, keep them coming."
So began Jerry Nelson's writing career. His humorous column, now called Dear County Agent Guy, drew the attention of the Volga Tribune, then the Watertown Public Opinion.
One day after I started writing, I got an idea for a piece that was really good. I felt that this was kind of special, and I thought, I wonder if I could sell this to a farm magazine. So I typed it up and I mailed it off, and lo and behold, Successful Farming accepted it for publication.
Other publishers liked Jerry's writing as well. Besides Successful Farming, Progressive Farmer, Farm Journal, Grit Magazine, and the Dairy Star picked up his weekly column. In 2014, an experience at the South Dakota Festival of Books got the Nelsons thinking that Jerry's column just might make for a good book. After pitching the idea to several publishers, Deer County Agent Guy hit the bookstores in 2016. His anthology of columns would now find an even wider audience.
A very common theme is I pick on my poor wife. She has literally gotten sympathy cards in the mail from people saying, your husband is mean to you and he picks on you too much.
I'm a good sport about it, I understand, that humor is in the family, and, there are times that, I pick on him back, so, you gotta give it back to him too, so.
There are some more somber pieces because there are some topics that you cannot treat lightly. For instance, my Uncle Wilmer, who just lived a mile away, passed away suddenly one day, and it was a shock to the family. So I wrote a piece about his passing, and that was eventually accepted by Progressive Farmer and published in the pages of that magazine, and that is in my book now too. I think it's good to have a balance. I think people appreciate good writing no matter what form it's in. If it's something funny or if it's something serious, I think people appreciate reading a well-turned phrase or seeing things from a point of view that they had never considered before.
Jerry continues to find inspiration in the world around him. A lifelong journey, still galvanized by the farm accident that nearly took his life so many years ago.
Ever since then, I've always had the feeling that every day that I've spent above ground has been a bonus. It's been a freebie. And so when this idea came to me of doing this newspaper column, I thought, well, why not? I should be dead anyway. Let's have some fun. Let's enjoy this. And so I began the newspaper column, and that led to where we are today with a book and my beautiful wife here, who is responsible for me being alive.